Welcome to SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home. I'm Tangcay from Variety. SAG-AFTRA Foundation has a COVID-19 relief fund to support SAG-AFTRA performers who are in urgent need as this pandemic continues. Since March of 2020, the foundation has given over $6.1 million in aid to 6,500 performers and families facing extreme hardship. If you are a SAG-AFTRA member and you need help, please ask. And if you are able to help support our community and this crucial effort, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. He is an Emmy award-winning actor who starred in Watchmen. He also starred as David Kane and Black Manta in Aquaman, and he stars as Bobby Seale in The Trial of the Chicago 7. Hi, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
I'm glad to be here. I appreciate you. How you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. And how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing well. I'm in Los Angeles, top of the year, taking it easy. That's kind of my theme for right now. It's serving me well.
I love that. Yeah. Nice way to start the year, given everything. But I'm so excited for this conversation to dive into your work on Trial of the Chicago 7, but let's just go back. You graduated from the University of California, Berkeley in architecture. So where did the pivot to acting stem from? Like, how did that journey begin?
Yeah, I got into acting my sophomore year. Now, I grew up in my house was a very lively house. I'm the youngest of 6. I was kind of just being the youngest, it's a boy all the way at the end, 4 girls, and then myself, very close in age. I think we're all like 1 year apart. So just being the youngest with all those girls in the house, I got a lot of attention. I was kind of pushed to the front of the group. And so I liked attention at a young age. I kind of gravitated towards the light. But it was never on a stage, never in a context of any real performance or anything like that. And I just kind of had a knack for being in front of people. I find myself in situations and making people laugh, and that's sort of what it was. I was on the track team at Berkeley, and we were doing this team building thing where all of the underclassmen had to go on stage and perform for the upperclassmen at the beginning of the year. And I went out there and did this. Did an improv exercise, and I just mocked all of the coaches. I did my impersonation of all the coaches, and people were just laughing, and that felt really good. I think that was one of my first times being on a stage doing something. And the next day at practice, people were still talking about it, and someone recommended that I take a theater class. My guy JP, he said, dude, you should take a theater class. It's just like recess. I never forget, we were stretching. And he said that. And I said, I heard recess. And, my ears perked up. And I auditioned for the class. I got in and had a really, really good time. I was in a world that I had no idea even existed at all. And I brought my energy and the same playfulness that I grew up with to that class, and that was my first introduction into that world.
And here we are, and people are raving about your incredible performance in Trial of Chicago 7, as well as Watchmen. People have been discovering that over the holidays. But Aaron Sorkin, what I love about him as a director is that when you read his scripts, there's so much direction that he puts in to that. What was that like for you as an actor to get a script by Aaron Sorkin and read that story?
I'm talking to my friends a lot recently, my fellow actor friends, and it's interesting to hear, to hear really, really good actors not be completely, and working actors also, just not really be completely satisfied with either their careers or the current projects. And, especially when we all went to drama school, most of my actor friends, they went to drama school. So we had 3 years, some of them 4 years of just straight good material, just great material. And it's so rare to get a script that is just good, you know. A lot of times an actor has the responsibility, an actor outside of drama school, and even sometimes in school, but an actor out in the world, it's our job to take a script and hopefully we like it enough to hopefully we like it, and we see opportunities in there for us, and fun opportunities and challenges, opportunities to grow and things like that. But most of the time we have to make the material good. It's rare that a script falls into your hand and it is just dynamic from top to bottom, and that you cannot wait to say these words. We spend a lot of time, I think, actors figuring out, okay, how am I going to say these words? How do I give these words the meaning that I know it means somewhere in here? And minding the script and seeing what's inside of it. That was not the case with this at all. I got it. I read the words. It was easy to remember, to memorize my lines, extremely intuitive. And I could just go and have the opportunity to be the good actor that I know that I can be. So, man, I could talk all day about what it feels like to get a good script, with a good story and with great words to say. That's a hell of a combination. Sometimes you get a good story, then you got to figure out your way into the words. It's rare that I think you get really good words and not a great story. Sometimes it happens, but this was a really good mix of all of those things.
I love that. What did playing Bobby Seale mean to you, stepping into his shoes and diving into the person?
Yeah. Well, first it was an honor. I grew up in Oakland, California. I'm from Oakland. I'm from New Orleans, but I'm also from Oakland, West Oakland. And Bobby Seale also grew up in Oakland as well. So for me, immediately this was a I got like maybe one third way into the script, not even that far, and I was ready to call my agents and say, hey, I want to do it. Sign me up. I'm ready. Let's go. I didn't do that. I said, you know what? I'm gonna sleep on it. I'm gonna take a day, and then in the morning I said, okay, do I still want to do it? Yes, let's go. But that was the first thing, is just knowing how much he means to Oakland, California, knowing how much he meant and means in the to the history of the Black Panther Party. Someone who was an advocate for people who look like me, and where I'm from, and so to speak, underprivileged communities, or communities that have been turned into underprivileged communities. So it was just really an incredible honor to step into those shoes and to be an advocate for his journey and for his history. And then also I got to do that in 2019, and to have that come out in the year of 2020 when we need work. It was important to have, have stories come out and be introduced into the world that causes us to align our moral compass, and to find our courage. And so this project, and playing Bobby Seale within this project, it was very timely for me. It was a lot to like about it.
Yeah. And I mean, talking about timely, I've spoken to Aaron Sorkin, and I think it was like 15 years in the making or something. Like Spielberg had the idea first, and then, Sorkin got it, and it finally came out last year. And what a year, while we're living in, where the whole world is watching, which we hear throughout the film, became so relevant to what was going on in America. Like, talk about having the film come out at that time.
Yeah,
the issues are different, but
when we made this film in 2019, we knew what this film was about. We knew what this film was why this film was being made. That it was an important time in history to figure out, or to decide, not to really figure out, but to decide what side of history you wanted to be on. And the most obvious way to do that while we were making this film, the most obvious way to do that, and the most important way to exercise that we knew was going to be to exercise your right to vote, to get out there, to make your voice heard at the ballot box and voting. This is 2009 when we were making this. We knew that the next year was a big election year. We were going to have to decide what kind of country we wanted to be. And then in 2020, things started to happen in the world and in the United States where all of a sudden it was much more complex than simply going out and voting. This was about, are you going to stay inside or outside? Are you going to be on the sidelines, or are you going to be in between the lines in the struggle? You know, this movie asks us, I think, where will you be when the revolution goes down? Where will you be when it all goes down? And also lets us know that we have different roles and responsibilities. And 2020 was was a year where so many people came together after seeing so many atrocities on black bodies that we could not ignore. And so you had people from all backgrounds taken to the streets. That was one of the first things that people did. They got out and they took to the streets and exercised their right to protest. And it was a beautiful thing. You know, it was a beautiful thing watching people come together and say, you know what, we're not satisfied with this. The police have a history of abusing their power, and we're not going to take it anymore. And we're going to push back. And not only are we going to make our voices heard, and we're going to protest, but we're also going to vote. Then we're going to continue to protest against things that we're, you know, completely dissatisfied with, you know. So it was really, really inspiring to see the world come together in a time where, you know, we're all struggling, you know, within the pandemic. You know, that was one of the you know, big challenges. It still is, you know, from last year. But even within that, you know, people found their positions and found the courage to, you know, to make their voices heard and to align themselves with the right side of history. It was nice to have a project that supported that you know, that energy.
Yeah. Going back to playing Bobby Seale, like, what was your research into him? Like, what helped you the most understand him?
Well, several things. I never got a chance to meet and to speak with Bobby Seale, and hopefully I will have that opportunity. But I read his autobiography. I watched interviews. I did research on you know, the 1960s. I came across one specific interview on YouTube where he was in prison, and he speaks about being in the hole. You know, his time in the hole, he calls it, or solitary confinement. And he didn't spend much time talking about that. He talked about, and then he was in prison, you know, during this time, and he talked about cooking. You know, he talked about his stew that he loves to make. And, you know, some people use margarine. I don't use margarine. I use butter. I like to use butter. And, you know, he talked about how to make a good, like a gravy. And he talked about the potatoes and the meats and what you can do with that. And he had this mischievous smile on his face. And that let me know about his humanity. You know, I think that in my acting process, I think that every good story is a love story. Every good story is a love story. And it's a story about a thing or person, maybe an ideal that that character is in love with. And then the job of the plot is to take that thing away from our characters. So I said, I gave myself the gift of having his humanity be the thing that he was in love with humanity, and being his ability to be a man, to be a human. And I knew that the plot was going to take that away. So all throughout the story, it was my job to align myself with that idea, to make sure that I was protecting Bobby Seale's humanity, his integrity, the things that made him a man. And a lot of times that was making sure that I had that connection to what was back home, to his family, to his food, to his freedom, the things that put a smile on his face. Because the bad things were part of the plot. They were going to happen anyway. But I'd had to connect it to other things. And that was, once I got into that idea, then it was a lot of fun to build upon that and say, well, how do I do this with as much variety and, joy and spontaneity and freedom as possible?
Yeah. I love that you talk about his humanity, because the one thing, in the scene in the movie where, he's, the character is bound and gagged, like, he wasn't portrayed as a victim. There was something so deeply, like, not that. Talk about, like, working with Aaron, filming that scene, because, it's such an uncomfortable moment to watch as a viewer,
Mm-hmm.
but, he's not a victim in that moment. So what were the conversations you had with Aaron about shooting that, and how do you prepare to film that scene?
Yeah, well, from the beginning, Aaron let me know. He said, Yahya, if you need anything, I'm here for you. If you're uncomfortable, you can say cut. You can, let me know what you need. And he let me know he was going to take care of me. He said, we're not going to have anybody. We're not gonna even things that I didn't ask him to do. He gave me certain considerations. He said, you know what? No one white is gonna put handcuffs on you. We're gonna make sure that you're taken, that you're emotionally taken care of. So that was the first thing that he did, was to make sure that I was safe, make sure that I was physically safe, make sure that I was emotionally, spiritually safe. To step into that position. And then the rest was not, after he did that and after we made that agreement, then he's got to do his job and he's got to get the shot, and I've got to, step into those shoes, and then now we have to do the business. Now for me, there's so much historical context. There's so much historical history that goes into a moment like that, and it could be pretty heavy. But my job was not to get to the end result. I made sure that I stayed present, in that moment. And I said, okay, well, what is Bobby concerned with right now? There's so much going on in the world, and he's being treated this way. It's horrifying. It's horrific. It's humiliating. What is he concerned with right now? I went back to humanity. I'm a man, and I stepped into that and into those moments with that thought. I'm a man at the beginning and at the end of the day. I'm a man. I'm a human being, and you cannot take away my humanity. So that was the thought. That was the thought and the seed that I used to get me through those moments. So even when they took him in the back and when they began to beat him up and put him in the chair, I'm a man, I'm a human being. You cannot take my humanity. They handcuff him to the chair. I'm a man, I'm a human being. You cannot take my humanity. They hold his head, they open his mouth, and they start to shove the materials into his mouth. I'm a man, I'm a human being. Now I can't even say it out my mouth. I have to say it in my mind. You cannot take my humanity. They tie him up and they march him out in front of everybody else. Head held high, I'm a man, I'm a human being. You can't take my humanity. And so that seed is what got me through. And I repeated that in my mind as much as possible until I didn't even have to think it anymore, until I just knew it, until I just knew what that meant. And in that way, that helped me to make sure that Bobby was never a victim. He was a human being, and we knew that a human being was being wronged. We knew that an injustice was being done. Not that, and we didn't. And so it wasn't a story about a victim. It was a story about humanness, about humanity, about perseverance. But it was a story about wrongdoing on behalf of someone else. On behalf of the systems that Bobby was fighting against. So that's kind of what my thought process was as I went through that, and it was challenging. It was challenging to hold on to that thought, because you got to fight for it when, when you feel like an animal and when they treat you like an animal, and when the whole world is telling you that that you're an animal. It's hard not to feel like it. It's hard not to start to feel like an animal, so that mantra, at some point, it's a reminder. It's a reminder. At other times, it's what you already know, and that's where your pride comes from. But at some point, when your pride gets touched a little bit, then now that mantra is a reminder. But you need a mantra when going through, tough moments like that.
Yeah, and I love the dynamic. There's just this great, dynamic between you and Frank Langella, who plays Judge Hoffman. I mean, it was those scenes were brilliant. Like, what was your interaction like with him, like offset? And
yeah, that was my guy. That was my guy. Because we have the relationship. There's so much animosity between the two of them. Mm-hmm. But in between the takes, I remember Frank would point like that. I go up there to the desk, and I spent a lot of time just up there like this, just kind of leaning on the thing and looking at him and talking to him. And where are you from? What do you do, kid? And have you? He asked me, have you ever done theater? Oh, so you trained in theater? Good. What do you want to do? And we talk and things like that. And he tell me his old Hollywood stories, and then we go back and we get to it. And then next thing you know, it's him and it's me versus him. And I'm staring him down and giving him problems, and he's returning the favor. And I think for me, I like it that way, because it's all play. And so my attitude is the more camaraderie I can build, the better, because it makes it it gives me permission. It gives me permission to give and to play and to make sure that I remember that it's, for me at least, it's still all in the spirit of fun. That's how I got in this position in the first place, by chasing something that was, that was fun and that was exciting.
Yeah, and the camaraderie extends to, the ensemble. So incredible. Jeremy Strong, Sacha Baron Cohen, Eddie Redmayne, like Mark Rylance. Like, what was it like working with them and, having that interaction again?
Heavy hitters. I mean, I was, that was 2019. I graduated drama school 2015, and so Mark Rylance is just like the cream of the crop. And I get in there, and I remember the table read. I was so prepared at the table read. I was so prepared. Because I'm like, there's no way I'm getting in this room and I'm not going to be ready, because Mark Rylance is going to be in this room. Eddie Redmayne is going to be in this room. And I don't have a choice. I do not have a choice. And that's what it was like. I think everybody brought the best out of one another and in the best way. It was definitely one of those sets where you kind of didn't want to, even when the camera was off of you, you kind of didn't want to leave, set, because there was always magic happening. It felt like, I talk about theater a lot because that's my training. I spent more time doing theater, or almost just, I think the tables are starting to turn, but I spent definitely more hours doing theater and practicing theater than I have professionally in film. But those were some of the best years, and where I had the best material and a lot of my best acting experiences. And this felt most closely like that. We were truly in an ensemble. Everyone had their role and played their instrument and played it really well, and had an appreciation for the entire orchestra. It was a really one in a lifetime. Hopefully it's not one in a lifetime, but it felt like a one in a lifetime filming experience.
I love that. And I mean, as I mentioned at the beginning, you were in Watchmen. You've got Matrix 4 coming up. We've got Candyman hopefully this year. The Trial of Chicago 7. What do you look for when you're picking your roles? Like,
it's changed.
What stands out?
What I mean? It's changed, really? Because if you look at, that's a great question. When you look at my resume, it's like, what the? Can I say fuck? What the fuck is this guy looking for? You know what I mean? Like, what is he looking for? And I selfishly I want to enjoy myself through this. That's how I got into it, and that's what works well for me, right? So I started off by just chasing my appetite, and I said I want to do good material and work with really good people, and I want to have fun. And so that's how I'm so blessed and fortunate to be able to go out and work with Baz Luhrmann and Michael Gracie and James Wan, Nia DaCosta, Lana Wachowski, Jordan Peele, you know, just trying to kind of follow the tastemakers in the beginning. I think that's been important to me, is to align myself with the tastemakers to see who's making what. And if I can get in, I don't have to be the star, but if I can get in and contribute and enjoy myself, then I'm going to go and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to take something with me that I can go and then, you know, hopefully take on more responsibility at the end. And that's how I got into this situation. You know, I think now, as I've been so blessed to be able to get in the driver's seat a bit more. I want to make sure that I still have fun. But now, you know, Trial of Chicago 7, and with this experience with Bobby Seale, it's really shown me that I want to do stories that are where I have some type of responsibility. That at least this is what my appetite is now, that I do have that I have a responsibility to someone else, and not just my own pleasure principle, you know, but that I have, but that now I can do this, that there's a meaning in the work that I do, you know, that there's a core message. So hopefully the next time we have the conversation, we can be having a conversation about, well, what is the message in your acting catalog? You know, what's the through line of your resume? You know, what is the theme, you know, of the projects that you want to do? You know, ultimately, I have questions about humanity. I have questions about freedom as a Black man, freedom for Black people, and what does that mean to truly be free? You know, free artists, free individuals. What does freedom mean? And right now, that's currently the exploration that I'm after right now.
I love that. So I'm curious. I mean, the films that we've mentioned, you've great costume designers who've worked on all of them. What is it like putting on that jacket in Trial of Chicago 7, or, you know, how much does that help you define?
100%. I mean, I remember my audition for Cadillac. I had a guy, Cadillac. I did a job called The Get Down. It was my first job. I played a character called Cadillac on that Netflix series. And I remember the guy who I brought. Actually, I don't really remember the guy who I brought into the room for my audition. Had a very strong audition, but it was not the character who ended up on the screen. And then I had my wardrobe fitting, and I put on that suit, and the inside of the suit might have been something like, it was either like leopard print or it was snakeskin print. The shirt was definitely some type of animal print, and the shirt didn't even have buttons so that I could button it up to the top. I think the last button was way down there, and then all of the chains with the lion on, and then the belt buckle with the lion, and then the rings with the lion. And I said, oh, I know exactly who this guy is. Like, how could you not get Cadillac? Cadillac is the result of what happens when you put on all of those layers. So that's how I answer that question. To me, the wardrobe is everything. Everything for me. It tells me how to walk. It tells me what I think of myself. It tells me how I expect the world to respond to me. It tells me what I'm proud of. It lets me know about my insecurities. I do all of that homework on my own, right? I bring a lot to it, and then I put on the costume, and then I still leave room for myself to learn. You know, what else is there, and that happens when I put on the wardrobe. And, you know, the same thing happened for Bobby Seale when I put on those sweaters and those pants, and then I learned how he wants to sit and how he wants to hold his hand, and, you know, his attitude. Where does his swagger come from? You know.
Yeah. Oh gosh, Cadillac was so great. Such a great character, and those costumes were amazing.
Yeah, I like that guy.
What's the difference though in doing like a TV series where you don't always know the ending, right? By the time you film the first episode and the final, versus working on a movie where you know the ending because you've got the script right there.
Yeah, with film, you got to be quick and you got to make decisions. You know, I have to be quick and I have to make decisions. With television, I have the luxury. Television gave me the luxury of making decisions, but also being patient and figuring out how and where I wanted to grow. You know, you make decisions and then you get another script and you say, oh, okay, so this character has that. So now how do I figure out how to maybe pivot, or instead of pivot, incorporate, you know, if you think about it like a tree, and then say, oh, I didn't know I had that branch over there. Well, now let me go play on this branch for a little bit and give that branch some attention. And that's kind of what a television is like. And I think a television got to be malleable. I didn't know I was playing Dr. Manhattan when I signed up to play, when I signed up on Watchmen. I signed up to play Cal Abar, you know, and I started to do my text work, and I was going down the path of being that protective husband, holding down the fort, quiet, kind of mysterious, but determined to be a loyal partner, a strong figure in the home. Knew exactly who he was and was confident in his position. And you know, a couple episodes in, I get the call, and I'm in Damon's office, and I'm learning that I'm playing Dr. Manhattan. That's what television can be like, you know, at the highest levels, you know. So for me, that's the difference, I would say.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, so the one question I love asking everybody is, you know, what was the film or scene that spoke to you that said, this is what I want to do. This is what makes me want to, this is where I want to.
Denzel Washington's performance in Training Day. Forget about it. Forget about it. You know why? Because he's such a G in that movie. Like, he's just a G. And the whole movie from the top, when he's sitting there and he's reading the newspaper in the beginning and he got looking over his glasses, he's in hot water from the beginning. I'm sorry, I don't want to blast out the sound. He's in hot water from the beginning of the film, and nobody knows. You know, only he knows that he's in hot water from the beginning of the film. And you never know until you figure out that this thing with the Russians and, he's actually desperate. He's the desperate one throughout the whole movie, and you never know until the end. And I love that. I love that. You know, I have my other favorites and things like that. I love John Cazale. I love anything that every word that he's ever uttered on film. You know, rest his soul. I love Gary Oldman in The Professional. If it wasn't for Gary Oldman in The Professional, you wouldn't have Cadillac in the way that we had him, because that was about physical freedom, you know. So I love Gary Oldman, and you know, I go around, I find my different actors and things like that. But I think about what Denzel did with Training Day, what he did with Malcolm X. Forget about it. And that sends me right back to wherever I got my notes in my space to go and stretch and to do my vocal exercises. That sends me back to the table to go and do my homework, you know, for sure.
One of the greatest.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this conversation. It was so great.
Cool.
Thank you.
I could do that. I could talk about acting all day. I get to geek out
I know.
a little bit.
I could talk about Training Day forever, but you know, we'll save that for like a third conversation after we talk about making tea. So on behalf of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, we want to thank you for joining us and for sharing your experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Your process, your craft with your fellow performers. Thank you so much.
It means a bunch. Everyone take care.